Wasn't that an awesome way to start the day? I feel like I'm getting up here with some really boring slides. I don't have a single sketch. Who did those sketches? That was awesome. So, normally I say at the beginning that I'm happy to give away these slides, not some sort of PDF or anything. I'll give you the PowerPoint so that if you think it's worthwhile, you can translate it into another language and use my boring slides to present your boring presentation if you think it's worthwhile. So here's my contact information, and we are going to talk about science. So it's not that I don't believe in experience. It's not that I don't believe in hearing what all of the amazing people who are doing amazing things, what they're up to, but I would like to see some research. I would like to see some evidence. So before we do that, I won't read this to you, but can you read it quickly? This has nothing to do with intelligence, but maybe it does. It has to do with a study, a longitudinal study that showed something very surprising. They were looking at men who had an incidence of Parkinson's. Does that translate? Do you know what Parkinson's is? Yes, it's a horrible disease. I have several friends who have it, and they said men who drank the most coffee were least likely to get Parkinson's. So it was a very well done study, a lot of science. And the results were exciting because, do most of you drink coffee? Yeah, we like results that line up with things that we already do or things we already believe in. Then we really get excited about, I don't drink coffee, so this didn't really do a whole lot for me. But, all right, so we're going to skip that for a minute and talk about intelligence. So how many intelligent people do we have here? I thought so. Because you're here. That's evidence. That's evidence. So when I first heard about this research, I thought, oh, good. I'm going to learn something about intelligence. And what I learned was no one knows what it is. So if you say you're intelligent, or maybe did you take an intelligence test, an IQ test at some point, and they said to you, oh, you're very intelligent, you have an IQ of, and they give you a number of some sort. How many people did that? Yeah, so that is intelligence. That's all we have as a definition. For individual intelligence is what you did on some test that measured something. And the reason it's significant is that people who do well on that intelligence test do well elsewhere. It doesn't have anything to do with brilliance or genius or ability. There are lots of things that IQ tests don't measure, but it's a powerful tool that is neglected. This is what we know about what individuals do. That if you do well on that intelligence test, and in fact, how many of you are ever in the business of hiring someone? You bring someone for an interview and you think, oh, this is the best thing to do, is to interview these people. I will talk to them and I'll be able to figure out whether or not this is someone we want to hire. It turns out science says the absolute best thing you could do is give them one of these validated IQ tests. That's the best indicator, the best single indicator of performance in anything that you could use in order to evaluate a person who's coming in order to be hired. It's a collection of things, this IQ test, where they ask you to solve puzzles or riddles or spatial organization tests that somehow your ability to put all of that together means that you can also do a lot of other things that we care about as well. There's a correlation. So it's valid, and it has been around for decades. So you probably know there's a lot of science now that's being called into question. Research results that people are saying, well, I tried to do that experiment and it didn't work for me. So maybe this result doesn't hold. So that means that original research is not valid. Someone else in a different situation trying to do the same thing did not get the same result. So for an IQ test, what we want to be able to say is it has been validated. It is the single best indicator of your ability. It is a valid test. It's been duplicated over and over and over. It's very reliable. It doesn't look at anything. I mean, I'm a musician. There isn't anything on an IQ test that's going to look at musical ability. It's also not going to look at a lot of other things that impact how well you will do. The introducer mentioned that I finished my PhD in computer science when I was 50. I'm waiting. Yeah, 50. Yeah. So how many of you started the day or the week thinking, oh, I would like to do whatever, but I'm so old. I just turned 30 or 40. Oh yeah, so old. So when I went back to school, there were a lot of people who said, Linda, you know, you're not going to finish this degree until, oh my gosh, you're going to be 50 by the time you finish. This is really crazy. Why in the world? You'll be so old. Well, that was 33 years ago.
Wow.
So how lucky. An IQ test is not going to say how lucky I was to be married to someone who said, if you want to do this, we will move to a place where you can go back to school. IQ tests aren't going to measure everything. So that won't be the answer to all our problems, but it's going to help us. And we know that there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. No, we're not going to talk about artificial intelligence. Here's the first book I want to recommend. As most of you know, how many of you still read books? Oh, look at that. See, you are intelligent. Obviously, you are intelligent. You read books. So it's a book by Charles Duhigg called Super Communicators. And in it, he said something very profound. He said, we want to be as human as possible. We don't want to look at artificial intelligence as a competitor. We want to work together. And of course, I remember back 33 years ago when they talked about, oh, artificial intelligence will be able to do all of these things in 5 years. And that was 33 years ago, they said that. So I wouldn't be too worried about artificial intelligence. So we want to talk about groups. And for me, that means teams. So we've talked about individual intelligence, what that kind of test would be like, what it means because it's valid. Could you do the same thing for groups? Would there be what would that even be? A test for a bunch of people sitting together? And when you finished, you'd have some way of saying, well, that group is intelligent and that group is not. Could you find some way of doing that? What would it look like? What kind of task or problem or puzzle would you give a group working together? And if you had that test, would it be valid? Would it show the behavior of this group on this test or collection of tests means that they can also do well on another collection of tests? It would be predictive of their success. What would that kind of thing even mean for groups? And yeah, I hope. So I stumbled across this book. So here's another book. It's about the power of group mind. How a bunch of people together can do all kinds of interesting things, including possibly take a test that would be predictive of the future behavior of that group. So if you'd like to know more about it, I'm recommending not only books, but papers. Go to this website. This is a group at MIT. I think they still have funding. I'm not sure. Donald Trump has been slashing everything, so there may not be anything left of it today. I'm hoping that they're still there. And look at all the amazing things that they're doing. So if we're going to find a test, well, the first thing we have to do is find a test. So in the research, they looked at a collection of things that groups do. So if we have any sociologists in the room, there are people who study the behavior of groups, and they have said groups do these things. They do generating things, choosing things, negotiating, and executing. So they began to define a series of tests that would fall into these categories and now begin to experiment. Let's give a group a collection of tests. Let's see how well they do, and let's see if that's predictive of their performance in the future. To do that, they had to have some people. So they recruited a collection of volunteers that were, well, typical. They wanted some very smart people, some people who were not so smart, and like the general population, most people are kind of in the middle. IQ average is 100 after all. So that means we've got 50% of the people over here above 100 and, well, then 50% down here. So just ordinary people. And what they showed was you can do this. You can create a collection of tasks and give it to a group, and it will turn out to be predictive of their performance in the future. In other words, you could have a group IQ test. So this first result was published, and again, if you can't find this paper, I'll be happy to send it to you, in 2010. I don't really like to talk about the latest and greatest because I'm not sure it's valid. But this first paper that was published in 2010 has now been validated. So I'm talking to you about something that has been duplicated by other groups in other situations. So this is real. And in fact, I wonder now why we don't do something with this result. Because in the finding of the test, they also said, how do we identify a smart group? Who are the people in a smart group? We should be paying attention. This result is almost 15 years old now. So, okay, yes. And they validated it. They tried it in different situations. They moved these teams around and they said, the people who are smart, they seem to be smart everywhere. And that's what we want. So they said, okay, we thought in the beginning, and this is a mistake we all make. Maybe everybody makes this mistake. Maybe every organization I know makes this mistake. Who makes smart teams? Who are the people on smart teams? What kind of people would you put together on a team if you wanted to make a team that was smart? You wouldn't want to do that? No, you're too smart. You're ahead of me. No, you would want to put smart people. And isn't that what, I know many organizations say, we hire the best. We hire the smartest. We want the top 10% of the Harvard MBAs, or we're out for smart people. Isn't that right? Oh, come on. You got to go with me. Go with me. Yes, yes. And that's what these people thought as well. You want a smart team, you put smart people on that team. Come on. Yes, yes, of course. And that is wrong. That is wrong. And we all know at some level, well, we are all smart people. And we have been on those teams full of smart people, haven't we? And how did that work out for you? Were those teams really, really smart because they had a lot of smart people on them? I don't know about your smart teams. No, not necessarily. And that's now true because we have evidence. The smart people don't make smart teams. She knows the smart people who make up the teams that we want to have are not smart. Doesn't hurt. It's not a bad thing, but it's not a guarantee. What we want is diversity. Yes, we want diversity. And oh, yeah, just putting a bunch of smart people together, no, it doesn't work. So they were surprised. Maybe you're surprised. Well, she's not. But the rest of you might be surprised. And these things also were not important. I would summarize that by saying how happy. If you ask people, oh, I like my team. I love my team. I'm so happy with my team. That also has no correlation with intelligence. Teams that are happy, teams that like each other. And it's unfortunate because we like to be with people we like. We're happier with people we like, people who are just like us. And unfortunately, that doesn't get us group intelligence. Not even close. So the idea that you're happy or I want to get up every day and go to work and yeah. These are the things that matter. Some of these you'll like and some of them you won't. So the first one is the average social perceptiveness of the members. So luckily, you're going to have somebody later on today, I've lost her, she's going to talk about how do you get people to talk. Average social perceptiveness means how well the people in the group think about what other people in the group are thinking. That's called theory of mind. Okay, number 2 is, does everybody talk? Is it just 1 or 2 people in all the discussions who are doing most of the talking? That is an indication of non-intelligence. Ooh, what about that third one? How many women are on the team. As my good friend Dan North used to say, Linda, you've never been on a team without any women. Yes, I guess that's right. I never have. So the evidence is pretty clear. It's not just you want a few women. The more women, the better. How likely is that? I'm just looking at the population of the room. How likely is it that we're going to have suddenly lots of teams with lots of women? And yeah, probably not. So let's talk about the first one, because that is difficult. That in our industry, we have lots and lots of people who, autism is a spectrum. There are people who are extremely autistic, who are very intelligent, very smart. But then there are the people in the middle, and then there are the people on the other extreme. So those people that have no concept of what other people in the group are thinking, that's called theory of mind. I'm wondering what my teammate thinks about what we're talking about now. It requires the ability to get inside the head of someone else on the team. So people who are more extreme on that autistic scale cannot do that. We don't want to think it's impossible, but routinely that's part of their behavior, is they don't think about what other people are thinking. And in fact, the researchers wonder if perhaps that's why more women on a team means better, because women do better at thinking about what others are thinking. So social perceptiveness, and the test that's used for this is one of my favorites. So let's see, is reading the mind in the eyes. And on this test, all you see, I have some animals up here, don't I? Can you tell? So all you can see are the eyes, and now your job is to say, I think that person is happy or sad or confused or disgusted. So it's called reading the mind in the eyes. You say what you think that animal is feeling, and it is a test for autism. So women do better than men. Not all women are better than all men. It's like height. There are tall women and also short men, so we can't generalize. But this is a valid test. It is the valid test for autism, and it's a way of measuring that. Equal participation, I think we understand. We know in a discussion if only a couple of people are doing all the talking. That's easy to see. We have been in discussions like that, where a couple of people not only dominate the conversation, they start it, they direct the flow of the conversation. Others might contribute, yeah. But those primary speakers are the ones that determine what the group is all about. That indicates non-intelligence. And that is something you can measure in your own group. Start watching for that. In the experiments, they would actually time it. Who's talking now? And now who's talking? And now, just to measure the amount of time that each contributor spent. And the more even, the more intelligent the group. That's something you can watch for. And of course, we know, the more women, the better. They measured it in research. Again, this might have something to do with social perceptiveness. Well, we're not sure. So that's all very nice, okay? They've done some experiments that show that this is true even if the groups don't see each other. So they moved the experiments to online groups where in the experiment, all they could do was interact with a chat sort of tool that was available. And they found exactly the same results. It's been validated for online groups that even when you can't see someone, there are people who are better at saying, I think I know what that person is feeling or thinking about this issue, even though I can't see their eyes. I can't see them at all. So, here's the question. Once we know this, well, we know what we could do about having people distribute the conversation more evenly. What else could we do? If we have a team and these are the people on the team, we can't add more women. We could monitor the conversation and say, you know, Fred and Joe, you do all the talking here. Maybe you should be quiet for a while. Let's hear what the others have to say. Okay, you can do that. What about that first thing? That social perceptiveness. So there's some really, really interesting research that says one of the possibilities is to together we could read. Oh, we talked about reading. I love it. We could read fiction together. So one of the papers I found, I wish this had to do with software development, but it doesn't, sorry. This has to do with empathy and occupational therapy, that those are people who also have to interact with other people. And they said, we know we have some people who are kind of on this end of the spectrum, and they're not doing a good job of understanding their patients. What can we do? And so they actually did a real experiment with reading literature. So the results of the experiment are pretty positive. It's not overwhelmingly positive, but by something about reading fiction, I have to think about the characters, what's going on. Is the handsome prince going to marry the beautiful princess? Is he going to carry her off to his kingdom and they're all going to live happily ever after? Going through that exercise together somehow leads us to do a better job of thinking about what other people are thinking. So I've given this talk a few times, and I heard from a gentleman, and I wanted to read to you the email that he sent to me. So it'll be something besides this paper. I think that's what I have left. Yeah, so this is a guy in Sweden. He said, I took this concept of improving group intelligence to my work with my team. We have 10 people, only 2 women, and 8 men. So every Thursday we have what we call a funtivity. So we had a short fictional story that we chose to read for our funtivity, and we spent the session talking about the story. No one on the team knew that I had heard your presentation or what this was all about. He said, I chose the first 2 stories, and after that, the group chose their own stories. He said, here are some comments from the group. Our Scrum Master very early said, wow, we have never talked to each other like this. 2 other team members said, I hated it at first, but after a while, I thought it was rather fun. One very quiet team member suddenly became active and said some very surprising things. We had never heard from him before. Everybody wants to do this regularly. We're not going to do it every week, but maybe once every month. And now other managers are interested. He said, now I give your presentation about once a week. A personal observation. Some members just told the story. But after a while, we skipped that. And we went right to discussion, and now what people are saying is how they felt and what they thought about the characters and how involved they were in the stories. He said, I hope this helped you validate your reading of literary fiction. So, what do you think? Yeah. Well, that's MIT, and of course, they're very smart people, and they have a lot of women on that research team. So let's take a minute, just take a minute. What happened at Google around this same time? So we know Google is very good at doing research, collecting data. They've got high-powered statisticians, and they were asking not about group intelligence. That was not their question. They said, we want to know what makes great teams. Maybe a related topic? I'm not sure. They called it Aristotle. So in Project Aristotle, they did the same thing. They looked at over 100 teams across the company, and they looked to see which teams were the most successful, so the smartest, and which teams were not. Well, these are all smart people, so it could not be that. They already had discarded that as a premise. It's not intelligence of the individuals on the team. What could it be? Could it be they all like each other? Could it be they had been together for a long time? Could it be that they were online? There are a whole host of variables. And the study went on for a year, and they had heavy-duty data analysis involved in this. And, wish we had a drum roll here, yay, they didn't find anything. Absolutely nothing. Now, when Google admits they didn't find anything, that's pretty serious. In fact, this is a quote from a vice president who said, at Google, we're good at finding patterns, but there weren't any. So what does this have to do with intelligence, Linda? You dragged us down through these slides. And so then someone had the idea that maybe there was something they hadn't really connected with. So they saw the research at MIT. They said, well, they're talking about group intelligence. Maybe it is the same thing. Maybe we should be looking at, social perceptiveness. What is that? How many women are on the team? They didn't look at that. How often people talk? Oh, we didn't look at that. And they discovered an interesting lady, Amy Edmondson, and here's your last book. Okay. She wrote about something called psychological safety. And in it, she describes, in essence, those things that they had identified in MIT. So they're now sort of collaborating. It's like a dance. Okay, MIT and Google and Amy Edmondson, who's at Harvard, they're all looking at the impacts of maybe it is psychological safety. That's where we are right now. This story is still going on. What we know is that there are these factors. Are they connected to psychological safety? We don't know. We're still working on it. So what can you do, or what's your takeaway? And the answer is we do know those three factors matter. The social perceptiveness. Be aware of what other people are thinking. Encourage that in your teams. We do know you can monitor. See, is somebody dominating the conversation of this particular team? We know now. We have evidence that is not a good thing. And if you see problems, perhaps you could experiment. with reading fiction. Maybe that would be something your team would enjoy, and I'll get around to some recommendations for that in a minute. And I don't know if you know Joshua Karievsky, but he talks about something called a study group. How do you read something together? So you can look at his patterns and he will help you out. I want to believe that we can all be better. I want to believe that I don't care where you are on any spectrum, that if we know something that would improve your behavior and the behavior of your team, we should do it. And we should encourage some kind of activity or behavior that will happen that your team will be better. That's Carol Dweck's research on the growth mindset, that we may not all be the most intelligent, but we can all be better today than we were yesterday. Oh no, we're back to this thing again. Did you read it? Okay, it was a well-done study. It's longitudinal. I mean, look, it went for 30 years. Holy cow. So what's wrong with it? There is something wrong here. Oh, well, there's also, it's all men. Oh, well, okay. But look at the sample size. Oh, big sample size. Ran for a long time, well-designed experiment. The result is true. By the way, it's true. Men who drank the most coffee were least likely to get Parkinson's. That's true. So I don't have Parkinson's, but I have a relative of it, a distant cousin, if you like. It's called restless legs. And when you have that and jet lag, you don't sleep well at night. You want to move. You get, in fact, the other name for people that have this syndrome is called night walkers. So we get up in the night and we walk around. I do some exercises, and then I try to go see my husband over there. He's going, oh yeah. Oh yeah, we know what that is. It's genetic. My father had it. I have it. My brothers have it. I have 2 brothers. I have 1 daughter. She has it. And none of us like coffee. So there's something about the genetic makeup of some people with this neurological tendency for Parkinson's or restless legs that also affects your liking or tolerating for coffee. It's not that drinking coffee is going to prevent Parkinson's. It's that if you have the genetic disposition for Parkinson's, you don't like coffee. Do you see the difference? Because when the scientific journals got a hold of this, they said, all you have to do is drink coffee and you won't get Parkinson's. It seems like a natural conclusion. I have just given you a ton of scientific research, and the conclusions seem so obvious. But like this one, you must always examine all of the evidence carefully, even if it seems well done. This is a well done study. It went on for 30 years. The results are valid. It's true. It's true. It's that the analysis of that is wrong. The analysis was drink coffee, don't get Parkinson's. So we have just been through a scientific adventure where we say, oh, this is true. We have seen it. I have just shown you the evidence. And now we conclude, oh, all we have to do are those things and we will have intelligent groups. Be careful. Be careful. And you should take that skepticism, not cynicism, but you should take that skepticism with you for the next 2 days. So we're talking about change. Here are my two favorite books, and we have an app. And if your manager says, "What are you talking about? Reading literary fiction?" So I started a little group on LinkedIn, and I said, "Can you think of, this has got to be fiction, but it's sort of technical?" And I got a ton of responses. So and some of these I have read. The Goal, I don't know if you've read The Goal. It's a novel. It is a novel, and the characters are made up, and the adventures are made up. Soul of a New Machine, The Deadline. I mean, there's I think I have 2 pages of, yeah, no, maybe not. So just 1 page. These are all, you could sneak these in. You know, you could say to your manager, "Oh, well, these are really technical books. We're reading these together. We're going to learn about this new approach," or, you know, and yet it isn't. It's a novel. Somebody made it up, and there are characters and an adventure and a storyline and things that you can talk about as a group. So it's a way of sort of subscribing to the literary fiction, but doing it sort of in a technical sense, I guess you could say. So, okay, I think we have 2 minutes. We have 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes. And I will be here today and tomorrow, and I'm happy to talk. And remember, if you just ask, I will give you the PowerPoint, and you can talk to your manager about it or whoever. So questions or comments, or what do you think about having more women on the team, huh?